And here's Ezekiel Kralen's, the next part of the story, which is, we're up to February 27. We're catching up. How My Poltergeist Saved the Day is the title of this. Ezekiel Kralen wrote. Email correspondence, February 27th. Subject, rain, bedbugs, and scooter. Continued. Date, February 27th. Don't even know if Paolo the exterminator will show up at all. It's just on our maintenance man Victor's word, who did not knock on my door yesterday. Instead, I had to track him down and ask if he set things up with Paolo. He said he did, for 2 p.m. the next day. But what if Victor shows up much later than planned, or doesn't show up at all? At any rate, I will no longer heat treat most of my bedding and clothes ahead of time, but just bag them for later, after my room has been fumigated and sprayed. That way, anytime Paolo doesn't show up, I won't have to spend more money and time heat treating everything all over again. I'll just unbag half the stuff and schedule another appointment. This way, I'll only have to heat treat again what I'm going to wear for the next one 2 or 3 days until I get around to treating all bagged items. Geez Louise. I offered to give Paolo my phone number since Victor never touches bases with me like he used to until the building manager accused me of going over his head. But he turned it down, saying he has way too many contacts on his smartphone as it is. So if Victor calls him to say he has to postpone Zeke's treatment due to an extenuating circumstance, Victor may not be around to knock on my door, and he won't be able to call or text me about it. So I'll be sitting in my dank hovel with everything bagged and stashed on my loft like I'm preparing to move out until, I guess, 5 or 6 p.m. when I can reasonably assume the exterminator's not going to show up. In such case, I will text him about it, just to put it on record, for it may come in handy for strengthening my possible lawsuit against a blah-blah realty. And too many stupid people run this world, from the top on down, and being forced to deal with those kind so often is a royal pain in the keister, but the pups are sheltered and cozy, and that's all that counts in my world. Besides the heavy gunfire incident south of Market, date February 28th, morning, Watson wrote, one of the worst aspects of poverty is the way it wastes a person's time. That's my experience anyway. I replied, you're kept busy by bullshit. People think I live a life of leisure because I receive a government stipend instead of having to work, when the truth is, were it not for the fluke of occupying an inexpensive single room when rent control hit, I'd have been tossed onto the streets long ago and probably died shortly hereafter, possibly at the hand of homophobes, and of course prejudices against the poor are egregious, including within the queer community. Thus, my present debacle, triggered by the idiot building manager, senile or not, his animosity toward me as a long-term low-income renter has been simmering for years, along with that from certain obnoxious residents. P.S. Welp, got to get ready to depart soon, back this evening. Subject, not so bad after all. Date, February 28th, afternoon. In fact, Paolo was most amicable. It only took 15 minutes to treat my room while I sat in the side hallway reading an e-book on my backup smartphone. I will be able to return hovel by 7 p.m. I actually like this arrangement better, as neither of us has to deal with a demented middleman. Now I'm at boring Pete's Coffee House on my fabulous Chromebook and enjoying a cup of English breakfast tea and a scone with lemon icing. $6.59. I almost had a heart attack. I'm close to the front door, so if there's an armed robbery, I might be able to slip out. What an adventure. /S. Signed Zeke K. Holmes, most boring detective in this quadrant of hyperspace. Subject, the mystery of 2 curious incidents regarding yesterday's extermination. Date, March 1st. While I waited in the side hall for Paolo to do his thing spraying my hovel, I heard the fucking smoke alarm go off. Just a series of 3 beeps, then a 20-second pause, repeated 3 times, then went through that cycle once more about 10 minutes later. When the job was done and he stepped out, the alarm went off yet again, so I asked him, is that going to go on all day? No, just for a little while longer, he replied. Well, I hope Victor doesn't hear that and rush in to see what's up, I exclaimed. No worries, he replied. Everyone's smoke alarm goes off when I treat their units. He knows about it. But get this, Watson. The smoke alarm's been out of commission for months now, ever since I switched it off, as you remember. And you can't just switch it back on. You have to replace it, which I did not. Of Of course, I never informed him of that alarming fact, since it certainly worked in my favor. No more Paolo reporting to the building manager that I need a replacement, thus averting a nightmare cycle of one new useless smoke alarm after another, waking me up late at night with its pointless shrieking. So thank you, little defunct smoke alarm. Upon returning hovel, the smoke alarm was silent and has remained so thus far. Now, regarding the second curious incident. First thing I did when I stepped inside was to open the windows. Second thing was to check the tub that catches water from the radiator leak. It was empty, dry as a bone. The radiator was turned off. Please note that I already have it turned off locally and have since time immemorial. Heat still emanates, and the valve still leaks regardless. Therefore, Paolo had nothing to do with it, and why would he? Hence, I must conclude the water source for all radiators in the building has been turned off by the main valve somewhere in the catacomb depths, either by mishap or intentionally. Perhaps this has something to do with the hot water heater and is now undergoing maintenance. Do they use a separate heater for the radiators? I have no idea, as I've never had the grand opportunity to explore the bowels of Hotel California North. Probably just as well, as I've heard that those who do rarely return. By the way, I now have steady hot water again for my sink as of last night, though this could change at any moment, so don't be complacent. Normally, were Kevin not in absentia, he'd have tacked a notice to that effect in the lobby, as well as in the hallway of each floor, right by the stairs. These are not normal times, and all residents remain in the dark and the cold, I might add, though probably greatly relieved over his imminent demise nonetheless. I was fine with just a T-shirt and a thin sweater when I went to bed atop 2 folded sleeping bags and one for cover. Warm but not toasty, exactly how I like it. But toward 3 a.m. the cold woke me up. A problem easily solved, though, by donning a thick coat, shutting both windows instead of just one, and turning on my space heater after moving it closer to my catafalque of a cot. I'd much rather put up with this icy cold than have an active radiator that you can never turn off, even when the weather's already over warm. My room's like a sauna then. My windows face the sun all day. Every building manager that's run this place has never seen fit to do anything about it, in spite of my numerous pleas. I even sometimes beg to have my radiator removed, since my little space heater is sufficient. But even though some have said okay, they've never gotten around to it. For your information, single-room occupants don't pay utilities, so an electric bill is not a concern, other than for the multimillionaire property owner, of course. I presume this unit heating imbalance is because single rooms, and there are 3 on each floor, heat up readily, while the larger units, aka real apartments, require more warmth to stave off the cold, especially on windy nights. When it comes to radiators, it's a communal situation wherein all units are treated the same, at the cost of misery for residents like me. The worst period is when the weather transitions into springtime for reasons I'm sure you can figure out yourself, good physician. After that, as summer nears, the radiators are actually turned off until late fall, when once again misery is my lot, for at least several weeks, until the damp, cold ocean air truly kicks in. Be that as it may, the unanticipated beeping of the smoke alarm and my radiator turning off copacetically saved the day. Is this possibly yet another bodhisattva clue they're toying with me, with the maintenance man and the exterminator playing their own little roles? Hilarious and most hopeful to boot. About an hour after returning hovel, I texted Paolo this animated GIF for the sake of goodwill. Although you're supposed to say GIF, I guess I say GIF. Colorful stained glass motif with the word gracias flashing on and off. It says in brackets for some reason. Gracias. Subject: I paid the poltergeist in cheese. Date March 4th. 4 slices of Swiss cheese, to be precise. According to some folklore, whenever an imp does you a favor, even when unbidden, just because it likes you, there's still a price to pay, albeit small, nothing even close to selling your soul, not even a drop of your blood. In this case, it appears to have been cheese. As the day after bedbug treatment, I began to prepare dinner and took from my fridge that packet of Swiss cheese, Then I reached for my whole wheat pita bread, a jar of pitted Kalamata olives, and another jar of roasted red bell pepper strips. Upon bringing them to my prep table, the cheese had disappeared. I looked everywhere for it, including the fridge, my workstation, the spice shelves, pantry, sink, my cot, on the floor, even outside my door. I couldn't find it anywhere. 3 days later, the cheese is still missing. Needless to say, I bought another packet, glad to pay such a paltry fee for a job well done. To be continued.